Is it possible for a wealth management firm to do everything right for the business while pursuing their mission to improve 1 million lives?
I think about it as, how do we make the biggest pie possible? Because we make a really, really big pie, that represents value creation. The good news is our clients are going to have all they need, and our employees are going to have what they need, and our owners are going to have what they need. There's going to be, plenty for the community, and there's going to be leftovers.
And how can they pair a creative private equity structure with majority employee ownership and still make it work for everyone?
There are lots of private equity firms or lots of, outside investors that want to be the only voice in the room. We don't believe that. I love having a different voice, a new perspective in the room. I think it makes us better. It makes the company better.
On this episode of Growth Leaders of Wealth Management, I'm speaking with the CEO and founder of Savant, Brent Brodeski, alongside his colleagues, Patrick Lawlor, head of M&A, and Robert Morrison, chief experience officer. I also had the distinct privilege of speaking with Bill Frayer, an investing partner at Kelso, and Savant board member Keith Taylor of Cynosure. From leveraging digital marketing in new and interesting ways.
Listen, people with tens and $20 million are doing Google searches to pick their advisor nowadays. It's who I'd thought, right? But that's the reality.
To being led by one of the original founders who is an entrepreneurial savant.
Having someone who's a visionary is really a huge feather in our cap.
Join me as we explore the unique growth story of the high-performing operation and execution that is Savant Wealth Management. That's right now on Growth Leaders of Wealth Management. Savant has a clear mission. They want to improve the lives of 1 million people. To do that, they have been on a journey to achieve an ambitious 10x growth goal. By the end of 2028, Savant is on the path to achieve 10x revenue and 10x the number of lives improved. And what I love about their vision is it isn't just aspirational. They have meticulously spelled it out in multiple ways. Savant has fully designed, beautifully written internal culture and vision documents, a document called Climbing Mount Savant, which clearly lays out their growth strategy, and they even have a Harvard Business Review case study written about them. They have a comprehensive financial growth strategy that looks at percentages of AUM, average net revenue, annual organic growth, and annual market returns. And they spell out those metrics to mark out the path to their larger growth goal, reaching $500 million in revenue by 2028. They also have outlined their core values, which includes things like excellence, lifelong learning, respect, and growth. They adhere to 10 guiding principles, things like always exceed expectations, challenge the status quo, and listen to your fellow employees. They even map out their superpowers and their key differentiators. For me, learning about Savant's vision and textbook execution of the vision is one of the many reasons I love hosting this podcast. I often tell people that hosting this podcast is one of the most selfish things I've ever done because I love being an entrepreneur and a founder, and I feel like this is an incredible chance for me and hopefully for you too to be able to learn from some of the very best. Brent Brodeski is the founder and CEO of Savant Wealth Management. Brent has a real passion for what they are building, and he's an entrepreneurial savant in his own right.
I really just love building. That's what I love doing. I love value creation. And I think about it as, how do we make the biggest pie possible? Because we make a really, really big pie, that represents value creation. The good news is our clients are going to have all they need, and our employees are going to have what they need, and our owners are going to have what they need. There's going to be, plenty for the community, and there's going to be leftovers. So that's kind of it's like, how do we create value? How do we build? What's really cool about our business is it's one of the very few businesses where you can really improve lives. You can make the world dramatically better, but we're not a nonprofit, right? Like, you can also make a ton of money while you're making the world better, and I compare it to like being a doctor. Like, doctors, listen, they're mission driven. They want to make people healthy. At the end of the day, they're oftentimes working for nonprofit organizations, and there's only so many patients they can see. So, I think what's cool about our business is through technology, through process, through scale, through creating unique culture, creating brands. We can build, and we are building, have built an enterprise that does massive value creation. That's kind of what I'm focused on. It's like this is a great pie, and we can just knock out these slot pies forever. But like, how do we make better pies and more pies? And if we do that, like, everybody wins, right? And so that's what I'm passionate about. But it's really about that value creation, knowing that the way we've structured our business and how our industry works is that we're creating more value. I've just learned the biggest difference between a small firm and a large firm is you got to get a lot more specialized. And so I think like increasingly my role has been curation of talent, like to attract, to, cite people, to create a, shared vision, but a shared vision that other people can, have internal input into, and then let them do their stuff. In the old days I had to do work and I had to manage people that did work, and I had to, lead managers, people that did work, and I was leading leaders, managers, people that did work. And now it's really creating a vision and creating high level leadership that attracts, leaders of leaders, right? And, and if you have great leaders and leaders of leaders, then you can attract great people that can do work, right? And manage work.
Brent likens the Savant team to the Navy's elite, highly trained unit, SEAL Team 6. Like them, Savant is driven by mission and surgical in their approach. Nothing happens by accident. They place the company vision over personal ego, and they take risks.
I've learned a lot, school of hard knocks, right? Doing things well, doing things poorly. I am a lifetime learner. I am, can't learn enough. At the end of the day, it is about risk, and listen, I hate Vegas. I don't go to Vegas, right? I go watch the shows. I go for food, and drink wine out there, but I don't gamble because the odds are against you, right? And, but risk, when I look at like others, there's a lot of people that are way smarter than me, like, in other businesses, even within our business, a lot smarter, but they tend to be really risk averse, right? So I do think it's about, risk, and it's taking smart risks where, like, why don't I go to Vegas? Just like, it's 48, 52% odds in their favor. The problem is the velocity of pulling the lever, is very high, right? So what is in business here, what I've come to learn is that if you do lifetime learn and you do analyze and you do listen to people and you have 8 people, the odds are better than that, right? The odds might be 70-30, right? And you don't need to make as many of them. I mean, Warren Buffett talks about making one good decision every 5 years. And I think that's maybe Warren can do that. I can't do that, but it's making a few good decisions, right? Where the odds are with you. And, recognizing that it's not all going to work. Like, and you gotta reward risk taking through the organization, right? Because if you don't, then people are going to be afraid to take risks. So part of it is to say, it's okay to fail, just don't sink the ship. One of our superpowers that I've shared is a pink bucket concept. And it's like there's 3 kinds of decisions. One is sink the ship, right? Like, and if it's a sink the ship decision, call me. I'm the best captain, and by the way, if somebody's going to sink it, it's going to be me. But if there's very few, almost no sink the ships, but then there's maim the ships, right? And what is a maim the ship decision? It's something that could set us back. It's something that could cause us to stall. It's something that could cost us a bunch of money, but it's not going to sink the ship. And I would say is like, listen, if you run into one of those, call me or call your supervisor or call a peer, like, get other ideas, right? Because it might actually sink the ship, right? Or maybe it's like an easy decision that you're overthinking. So it's like involve others and maim the ship. But then there's, the vast preponderance of the decisions are chip the paint on the hall, right? And it's like, if people over fret, like they're afraid to make decisions, they're afraid to take risks, and most of them are chip the paint. It's like, just decide, right? You don't even ask permission. And by the way, if you chip the hole in the paint, go get the paint out of the paint closet,
Fix it.
Right? And so that's what we're trying to, do. I mean, it starts with me, setting a culture of smart risk taking and also leaning on others' experience. White McKinsey, they're really expensive, by the way. It was like almost $2 million we spent. But what that did was it sped up, like we could have built a strategy for enhanced organic growth on our own, but it would have taken 2 years and it would have been 75% as good, right? And the opportunity cost of being 75% as good, and the opportunity cost of thinking about it for 2 years before we executed it was huge. Like when you do the math. Like so, the $2 million was a small price to pay to get the strategy that was a little bit better, that was more thought out, that leveraged others' experience, and be able to execute on it, 8 weeks, 10 weeks from now, as opposed to 2 years from now.
Brent is talking about hiring an outside consulting firm to accelerate the build and execution of Savant's organic growth strategy. The importance of organic growth in an industry that has relied so heavily on inorganic growth will not be lost on you. In episode 1 of Growth Leaders of Wealth Management, we learned that Facet has grown entirely organically, no M&A. In episode 3, the CEO of Choreo told us that we should not expect to be hearing from them regularly with acquisition updates. And in episode 4, we heard from Merit Financial Advisors about their outsized focus on organic growth, given that they grow 90% inorganically. Savant holds the same beliefs about the importance of purely organic growth. Here is Brent.
It's the least expensive. It's the most sustainable. There's a lot of firms that it's just custodial referral programs. And the problem is their margins are low. And at some point they're susceptible to the custodians and, the one trick pony. It's really creating a diversified organic growth strategy that, is sustainable, durable, and by the way, if that requires also having an infrastructure to support that. We do a lot on the inorganic as well. We did 11 transactions last year, 2 accounting firms, 9 RIAs. But why do you think they joined us? They joined us because they wanted to organically grow faster. Like, we don't buy spent oil wells. We don't buy companies where they want to, check out, monetize, go to the beach, or stage exit left. We're partnering, we're acquiring firms that are excited to be bigger, better, cooler, grow faster, have more fun, add more value to clients. And that means, needing to have an organic growth engine. So we're finding we're attracting better partners who are looking to be part of this for 5, 10, 15, even longer years, because, we're able to bring, if you think about it, it's referrals, it's centers of influence, it's just a personal brand at the country club. And that might work for 3, 4, maybe even 5% organic growth. But that's not going to attract the best and the brightest, right? That's not going to allow us to afford the best talent, the best technology. We believe we got to, grow organically over time, 10% plus. It's a virtuous cycle. If we can show and demonstrate, high organic growth and have a lot of tools in the toolkit, if our typical new partner has 8 or 16 Crayolas in their box, but we got 128, like they can now grow 2 or 3 times as fast, right? Which allows them to have their equity that they roll grow faster than on their own. It allows their income to go up. It allows them to serve more clients. That ultimately, it allows us to, accelerate our progress. My big career goal is two things right now. It's how to improve 1 million lives. And the fact that we're not a nonprofit means that we get to participate in that success. And then the second one is how do we create 2,500 employee millionaires? We're only 560, I think, or 580 maybe it's employees right now. So I don't even have that many, but that means we have to organically and inorganically grow and have to attract the right partners that can help us do that. So yeah, I think the organic is critical.
Savant is a founder-led company that has created a highly differentiated capital structure that combines private equity with employee ownership. That means they are a private firm that is owned by both their employees and a controlled group of highly curated investors. And what I find really unique, Savant employees own 100% of the voting stock and a supermajority on the board, meaning their minority private equity investors are truly minority investors. How did this come to be? We'll get to the private equity investors in a bit. Before we get there, it's important to share a bit more detail about the type of business Savant is intentionally building. Brent says there are 4 types of business models that you see in the industry today. There are businesses that are entrepreneur, founder-led, like Savant. Then there are family-run businesses, private equity-backed businesses, and publicly traded companies. Savant has aimed to take the best from each model as they pursue their vision.
I'm a founder, right? I'm an entrepreneur. The professional managers call me a gunslinger, right? I shoot from the hip, and and I just make decisions, and sometimes break the rules, and so there's good and bad, right? Like being a gunslinger, being an innovator, being a risk taker, jumping in and doing whatever needs to be done. That's good, right? But on the other hand, it can become limiting. And so, you realize eventually, in some cases you need more structure. You actually have to have an HR. You have to follow rules to get a bigger company, right? And so the pluses of a founder is, you look at even the biggest businesses, the most successful businesses, the founder-led businesses. They used to think founders were crazy and they'd get rid of them as quickly as possible. They've come to find out that the highest growth businesses are founder, entrepreneur type businesses. So the idea is like, what are the pluses? Quick decision-making, smart risk-taking, innovation, leading by example, creating a magnetic culture. Those are the pluses. But the minuses is, not having structure, not creating scalability, right? not delegating properly, not leveraging specialists. So recognizing the pluses and minuses allow you to take the best of founder, but then look into other models. Like, what about public? Well, the pluses is they have great governance. The pluses is they have the smartest hired guns in the business. I mean, the top level people in large public companies, they're probably a lot smarter than me, right? They also create scalability, right? And they build great brands. So those are the pluses. The minuses are they're bureaucratic. The minuses are they can't grow as much as fast as private companies. The minuses is you got to deal with Sarbanes-Oxley, and compliance matters. And so again, it's like, okay, let's go and hire the smartest hired guns, who are excited to become part of a founder-led entrepreneurial business. And a lot of hired guns don't want to do that. They frankly, they respect the bureaucrats. They're more bureaucratic. But then you find some of them that are really, they're tired of the bureaucracy and they want to go act entrepreneurial within a bigger organization. Or private equity. Listen, I used to think, private equity, that was a license to steal. 220%. My God, that's like raping, your LPs, right? Why would you ever do that? But I've done 180. I've had, now I have 2 private equity partners, and they are amazingly helpful. Like, they add so much value. They bring resources, they bring expertise. As I said earlier today, it's like, I've never done this before, but they have taken hundreds of medium-sized businesses and made them large. And the playbook they use, different industries have different nuances, but they rhyme. Versus rhyme, whether you're in a wealth management business or you're in a accounting professional services business. And so they bring certain plays to the playbook. They bring in expertise, they add great talent, they use leverage. I'll also say, example, leverage is oftentimes they use too much leverage. So, if I just played by the PE playbook, it would put 8-10 times leverage on a business, right? And that's, I wouldn't sleep with that, right? And if you're trying to
Right.
a business that's controlled and sustainable and durable, controlled by its employees that can, play the long game, you don't get over levered because you may end up, it's like doing Golden Fiddle with Charlie Daniels and the devil, right? You lose your business, right? So I like the PE playbook. We're using a little bit of leverage now, or we never used to use any, but not too much. We've been upgrading talent, right? We've been we moved from an anecdotal to data-driven business. We have really effective governance, right? Not Sarbanes-Oxley, which is just bureaucratic and cumbersome and costly, but I'm accountable to my board. We have a 9-person board, plus a board observer. I'm the only employee that's on the board. These guys are titans in industry that are super helpful mentors of me, but they also hold me and my team accountable. And so that's good, because typical founder-led shoot from the hips, they just do whatever they want. They don't have any accountability. This brings certain structure and accountability to us. And then I think family business. Like, listen, I used to be jealous of family business. I'm first generation of, everything I've built. I'd see friends and my wife deal in other business organizations that stepped into family businesses and they were instantly big, right? I used to be jealous, but then I've seen how dysfunctional family businesses. Like what happens? Like they never upgrade talent. They might have the same CFO that they had 25 years ago. Oftentimes the kids are not as good as the dad, right? But, and so might not have great leadership, right? Or maybe, you got fighting among the siblings, the ones that are in the business versus out of the business. It's dysfunctional, right? And so there's negative parts about family business. And PE love family business because they're usually run so inefficiently and they're not growing much. And they come in and they whip them and shape and they grow faster and they a lot more profitable. That's why PE loves them, right? So those are the negatives. What are the positives? Well, you don't have to only optimize on a maximize shareholder wealth if you're a family business. You can think broader around your value proposition. Where traditional PE is 2 to 5 years, family business can go, generations, right? So they can play the long game and invest for the long run. Make big investments that may take 5 or 7 or even 10 years to pay off. Where a traditional private equity can't do that, or publicly traded, they're managing quarterly earnings. They can't make investments that take more than a quarter to pay off, in many cases. So I think about that is what's cool about where we're at is obviously we're founder entrepreneurial, but we also have the best plays from public with, great governance, great professional managers, structure, scalability, and the best of PE, a right amount of leverage, accountability, data driven. I can go on and on. There's really good things about that. And they bring super smart people. Like you get their resources for free. Like, you're getting, PE firms employ people they're paying millions to that I get for free. Free, but they get some benefit of that, right? But
sure.
But then, family business. In some ways, we are a business of families. Like there's 170 families that are invested in my family. So there's elements of that, but it's not just one family. So we can play that longer game. So I think, this is a construct I've more recently, recognized, because I went from thinking family businesses were great to dysfunctional, and the public companies is what I aspired to know way, know how, to private equity that I thought were, highway robbers, to, wow, these are really smart people. And also recognizing the errors of just being founder, gunslinger. So I think it really comes down to, making all 4 of those, saying we're going to do the best of and avoid the worst of. Does that guarantee our success? No, but I think it increases our odds and it attracts, I can attract the best talent from all 4 of those categories, where, if it's a family business, there's a whole lot of great talent, or just about that, a whole lot of great talent won't want to work for a spot.
As you heard, Brent has done a complete 180 on private equity. Savant currently has not 1, but 2 private equity partnerships with Cynosure and Kelso. Having 2 private equity investors wasn't in Brent's original vision for his employee-owned company. In 2016, Savant decided to bring in a private equity partner to support the successful exit of one of the founding partners. After that, Brent had no intention of seeking another private equity partner, but in 2021, after hearing a lecture at the Harvard YPO President's Program about the changing financial market and the abundance of private equity capital, he started to think in new ways about what might be possible. But even as he was opening a new door to potentially a second private equity partnership, Brent's maniacal attention to detail came into play. He mapped out the 10 key requirements that he deemed non-negotiable for any potential deal. For instance, Savant would only consider a partner that would commit to a minimum of 7 years or longer. And partners needed to bring more than just money. Their expertise and acumen had to accelerate Savant's success. These guidelines helped make sure Savant only considered partnerships that aligned with their timelines, culture, and long-term vision. Bill Frayer of Kelso partnered with Savant 2.5 years ago.
What was really interesting to us is, there's a lot of companies we look at that have great reputations, right? And, Brent is a really well-known executive in the industry. Savant's highly regarded. But oftentimes when you get under the hood, that doesn't fully sync up with the reputation, right? Here it did. And in fact, the diligence got us even more excited about the opportunity. And really what we saw a bunch of things, but when I sort of distill it down, we saw a highly differentiated business with points of differentiation for clients, for advisors, and for M&A targets, which are, really the three big constituents. And then we saw a CEO in Brent who had a very clear vision of what he wanted this business to be in 5, 10, 20 years out. And, a lot of people have a vision, but they compromise on it, right? There's XYZ emerges and they sort of veer that direction. Brent is very clear around what his non-negotiables are and what his vision is. And his process is a perfect example of that. Like, he developed this list and just did not deviate from it, and was very transparent and candid with us about what he was looking for in a partner.
Keith Taylor of Cynosure was the first private equity investor and has been a Savant board member since 2016. He believes M&A often destroys more value than it creates, and that identifying partnerships that align on principle and vision is very important. Given that, I asked him to describe his reaction to Brent's list of partnership non-negotiables in the run-up to bringing Kelso on board.
I think the benefit of, in that situation, not having to do anything, puts the company, puts the board, puts the employees, puts the clients, puts us as shareholders in an enviable position, in the sense that we can have 10 non-negotiables and we can go out and try to find the absolute best partner that meets our non-negotiables and meets what we believe will actually drive the company forward. And if we don't find that, we don't have to do anything. There was no 5-alarm fire. Hey, we have to have capital or we can't do X. We have to have a partner. We can't do Y. I really believe, there are lots of private equity firms or lots of, outside investors that want to be the only voice in the room. We don't believe that. I have a lot of respect for the Kelso guys. I've known them longer than the investment in Savant. I love having a different voice, a new perspective in the room. I think it makes us better. It makes the company better. It allows us to think things that we've thought about for 6, 7 years in a certain way, allows us to come at that fresh. And so to me, it made all the sense in the world, assuming we stuck with our non-negotiables and we went out and found a partner that we really believed was going to be additive and not detract from where we were heading. And so I think we ran a very methodical process. I think we ended up with a terrific partner in Bill and his colleagues. And so I didn't have any issue with it when he raised it. And I think I would have only had an issue if we started compromising along the way and got ourselves into a position where we felt like we had to do something.
Bringing on Kelso as a partner quickly benefited Savant.
Bill and his team have brought a level of hiring acumen to the organization that I think is excellent. They have a partner who helps with helping CEOs and companies really learn how to scope and hire and really get the right person, and again, not settle. That's an example of something I think they do better than we do. We've never found the optimal CFO for Savant, not only for the moment, but for the trajectory of where we're heading. So we've had some great people in that seat, and I don't want to detract from them, but they always felt like they were the right person for that moment, not for the right person for the company that we were building 5 to 10 years from now. And so as we thought about embarking on an effort to really find that person for the business that Brent wants to build and we want to help build over the next 10 years, one, it's a process that lasted, I don't know, Bill, 9 months. And 2, we ended up finding an absolutely terrific person in John that we wouldn't have found without the collaboration and us being able to say, hey, this is what we did in the past. This is what's worked really well. This is what hasn't worked really well. This is where we feel like we still have some deficiencies. Hearing that from my point of view, where I sit on lots of company boards and we do a lot of investing, and so I have maybe a different vernacular than Brent has, but having Brent vocalize it, us vocalize it, and then Bill and his team really be able to think through that and help us go find that exceptional candidate, is one area that comes to mind that, I think we have succeeded in making a better outcome for the company than I certainly would have done standalone.
Bill Frayer says hiring the right talent is a huge focus area for Kelso across their entire portfolio. But he also says he's benefited from the perspective Keith has brought to the table.
One of the things that we really benefit from in this board is that Keith has been invested with the company since 2016. And so he's got all those experiences prior to 2021 that we just don't have. And we can learn a lot about a company through due diligence, but there's no substitute for living and breathing the company for 5 years. He's built a lot of trust with people internally that, we can't build that in 2.5 years. We think over time, we can hopefully get to that high level. But his trust with folks in the organization, his perspectives formed over, now 7.5 years. And on the talent front, it's really helpful because when we're meeting new candidates for certain positions or talking about, culture and, certain elements, elements of the team, Keith just has a longer perspective, and he can kind of point to, well, back in 2017 or 2018, when the company was much smaller, here was a non-negotiable on culture that was super important. We need to be very mindful of that going forward. It's not that we're not aligned or, thinking through the same thing. He's just got a deeper perspective on it. And it's a really helpful thing for us to have as, still relative newcomers to this company.
When Kelso invested in the company 2.5 years ago, Savant's track record for success and organic growth was tremendous, but they hadn't really scaled their M&A program yet. So early on in their investment period, Bill sat down with Brent and Keith to explore a question.
How do we build a really high functioning M&A capability that also is consistent with our values as a firm? Like, we're not ever going to just aggregate a bunch of firms. We're not doing this for financial arbitrage. Like, we're trying to create a better firm, not only a bigger, but a better firm. We're trying to find buyers, not sellers. We get a lot of equity rollover in our deals. Some of our deals are 70 to 80% equity rollover. So we're trying to find the right firm that wants to join Savant so they can grow, not the type of firm that is just trying to cash out. And that was something that took, several quarters to build out. We hired a new head of M&A, a gentleman named Patrick Lawlor, who's been fantastic. We've added folks to that team. We've really refined our strategy. And, 2023 is a great example. We did 11 acquisitions in 2023. And what we're actually most proud of is not the number of acquisitions, but the fact that we partnered with really high quality firms, firms that had really, really good positions in their market, that were growing, that were profitable, and where the principals rolled over meaningful stakes.
Here's Keith again.
Some of the best decisions I think we've made is making investments and then being patient. So many firms, I feel like, lack the patience to test and learn, make small investments, learn, make bigger investments, and get to the point. It's much different to grow organically at a high clip at 27 billion than it is at 3 billion, obvious, right? And you've got to make a lot more investments, which we're doing. Not all of those are going to pan out, but being really patient, having a learning organization, and getting to the point where you can actually allow the velocity of the returns for the investments you're making to prove themselves, I think is something that we've done really well. Kelso's been aligned with that from the beginning, and I think has been a great partner, from that perspective, and in continuing to be patient as we make investments and watching things mature. So many investors today have a relatively short hold period or a short time horizon, and they only make investments if they believe that the complete earn back on that can happen in a short enough time to where they can capitalize on it on their own sale. I don't think that's the way you build great companies. I certainly don't think that's the way Bill and his team believe you build great companies. Obviously, from a founder's perspective, Brent doesn't believe that. And so here, when I talk about patience, we really are trying to make investments that we think are going to build a great Savant 5-10 years down the road, even though we're tracking that monthly, quarterly to make sure that we're making the right investments.
Coming up, we'll explore Savant's integrated M&A model and see how digital marketing has transformed their business. Also, founders are rarely able to implement all of their ideas successfully. What makes Savant's CEO so different? That's after the break. Are you looking to supercharge the growth journey at your business? FICOM is ready to make it happen by serving as your embedded growth partner. Let us put our unmatched industry and growth marketing expertise to work for your business. Our strategy-first, multidisciplinary approach ensures your business goals stay at the forefront, so you're always aligning all your marketing activity around the growth you want to achieve. Visit us at ficompartners.com to find out more. When Kelso was first brought on board as an investing partner, Savant's M&A program hadn't really been scaled. That's quickly changing under the leadership of Patrick Lawlor, Savant's head of mergers and acquisitions. I asked him to describe how Savant does M&A differently than peers.
I would say a lot of our peers are, I would say maybe doing a little more financial engineering, and they might buy a firm that's not really growing a lot and just really want to buy the assets and just aggregate that way. Savant, we are more looking for partners. We're 68% employee owned. So we're looking for partners, that firms that maybe have hit growth challenges, which is very common in our industry, and looking to partner with someone that can help them grow and not necessarily retire and head off to the beach. Just, help them build something bigger and better and be part of something, I would say, more special. It's firms that lead with planning, firms that maybe don't necessarily have any esoteric investment strategies, firms that put clients' interests first. And so it is different. We are unique in that we're not just going to do a deal. We don't have any impetus to do those types of partnerships. But we have been pretty lucky to find a lot of firms that do want to be partners. They want to be something. They're not ready to give it up. They're students of the game, but they understand they need someone else to bring them to that next level, and they'd like to do it on a platform that like something that we've built out.
Does Savant's brand matter in your M&A conversations? Is it important that the people you're speaking to know of Savant, have heard of Savant?
It plays in more than you would think. It's, even though we were what I would say is super regional firm, and we're going national, firms on the West Coast where we don't have any office or presence, they know us. So the brand is really important. We're spending a lot of money in very, let's say, strategic and surgical way in our marketing, and the reputation has gotten out there. I think as we're a fee only NAPFA firm, use DFA. A lot of people know us that maybe we don't necessarily know who they are. So it does matter, and it actually helps us a lot.
And how much of Savant's interesting PE structure with the minority investors and the two, PE firms that work really nicely together, and Brent having, complete control and governance, how much of that plays into your partners' decisions, if at all?
It definitely does, because, they're long-term patient capital. We're not on a treadmill where we need to sell every few years. If you were on the treadmill, it'd be very disconcerting. But knowing that you're not, a lot of partners they like that. And then once they meet, our outside capital partners, they really like it because they're really smart people. They bring a lot to the table. They're really accretive to that. So they understand that this is like a true partnership. So it definitely has helped us win some opportunities, because once they get really comfortable with us, and then they want to see, well, where's the money, coming from? And then they get to spend time and ask tough questions, what is your investment horizon? What do you like about Savant? Where do you want it to be? It's definitely a positive for us, and something we've leveraged.
One thing that sets Savant's M&A model apart from other firms is their optimization team. A merger is a big decision, but when a firm sells, it's really only the beginning of their transformation. They still need to acclimate to new technology and become fluent in the culture and environment of the new company. Often they are left to learn things on their own, but Savant has people in place that can help. Their optimization team sits with the new firm to provide information, introduce them to company players, and offer technical guidance. Adding this layer has been a big differentiator for Savant. With assistance, their new partners get on their platform quicker and are rapidly able to access everything Savant has to offer.
We try to get wins really quickly with our new partner firms. So maybe within the first 30 to 60 days, we've got a phenomenal wealth transfer team, with about 7 estate planning attorneys on there. So you can get some quick wins right away with these new partner firms by going through and doing audits on their estate plans. Where are their weaknesses, where are their gaps, and it's been very successful. The feedback we've heard from a lot of our partners is that this was one of the most transformative parts of joining Savant, is that we have a platform of people, really highly skilled estate planners, that can help them get wins with their clients really quickly. So, when you do M&A, you only want clients to see positive things, right? And everyone's always afraid of, oh, what are my clients going to think? Well, when you have a team of specialists that can kind of parachute in and the relationship and saying, this is part of why we are partnering with Savant, it's great, and that's something that we've been very forward thinking about is how do we get quick wins and add a lot of value to the client relationships.
Robert Morrison is the Chief Experience Officer for Savant. He's responsible for bringing more value to existing clients while also competing for and attracting new clients. And he agrees with Patrick. He also wants to provide quick wins for new partners and their clients.
What I advise new partners when they're joining Savant is to pick, their top half a dozen clients. And what we want to do is have them, quote, taste the wine. Like, we want to have them get a wow experience that was something that their prior firm couldn't deliver, on. And so we brainstorm, a lot of times with new partners on, tell us about these key relationships you've got, and let's think about what services would benefit, most. So that's a very, bottom up, just helping connect the dots. And it's honestly one of the challenging things for new partners is, all of the work that you put into doing a deal, you get to the closing, and in some ways the work has just started, right? Your clients haven't benefited yet. And there's, by the way, a data integration forthcoming, which everybody would agree is cumbersome and difficult. And so, getting to where we can bring value as soon as possible after day one is really where a lot of our energy is. And so, meeting with the teams and just, getting them familiar with how to plug into our specialty groups. But a lot of it's just, as anything is in life, it's experiences one at a time where they start to connect the dots and say, oh, if I have a wealth transfer question or issue with a client, I want to take that to that team. And how does it help with growth and winning new business? There's the existing clients, which we want to wow and delight and, obviously win more trust and share of wallet and referrals and that sort of thing. But the other is just in competitive, prospecting, actually having these specialists show up and be a part of that presenting team to a prospective client. We've had really good success in our team in Chicago, having a tax professional, having an estate professional, and sort of present that kind of family office type of team structure, and have actually asked those people after the fact when they became clients, what did it for you? Why did you pick Savant? And that's usually at the core of what they point to is what, just seemed like this is a bigger, deeper bench, for us to benefit us.
Rob is responsible for Savant's advice delivery and advisory services. That means he provides leadership to a lot of different groups. For example, there is a wealth transfer group and a centralized planning group. There is a division for tax and accounting that offers standalone services. And there are 5 attorneys that are focused on estate planning and an affiliated law firm that can draft documents for clients. And then there are many frontline financial advisors. All told, he's leading over 300 people. But Rob says it is all in the pursuit of excellence. They work hard to make sure their clients are taking full advantage of everything Savant has to offer.
The first thing I think is engagement and awareness. And that in and of itself can be daunting because we don't want to send so many messages to advisors that they're sort of overwhelmed. And so having appointed kind of liaisons for them, go-to resources to consult. But also, we're spending a lot more time and energy mining our own data. And we're going to be making some investments there as well so that we can display for an advisor where they're at in their practice. It's easy to have things fall through the crack where you didn't get around to everybody. And so how do I know that I'm delivering to everybody? Or how do I know that I'm checking all the boxes for each client? I know in my past history, I had cases where I wasn't getting to that. So developing more reporting on and automations around, are we doing the basic blocking and tackling with clients? What's the level of engagement? We've sort of gamified that, where we're scoring households and reporting to advisors on, here's the household score of engagement. Are we doing the basics like annual review meeting, doing planning cases and an update, to their plan, and do we have other connections to them? Are we doing their tax work? Are they engaged with our law group? Are we getting referrals? That's obviously a tell of healthiness of a relationship. And our planning is oriented around a structure, kind of a wheel of 10 key areas. And we're beginning to track and report to advisors about the frequency to which they're touching in on each of those 10 key areas, so that we help sort of arm them as to, are you on top of things with the right amount of frequency, for each client? And of course, it's no one size fits all, right? I mean, different clients have more sophistication than others, and a larger client with more sophistication, we should probably be checking in on those 10 key areas individually once every 12 months or so. And a smaller, less complex client, maybe it's every 3 years or so. And so just, there's a lot of value to be gained by developing business intelligence and metrics, where an advisor can sort of see the dashboard of, this is my practice, here's where I'm at. And then we can obviously see it too. We can backstop that with our leadership team to say, okay, here, this team or this advisor needs to be, stronger in these couple of areas.
So you've got this business intelligence, which sounds like it really allows the advisors to not have to focus so much on finding those gaps and understanding where the opportunities are, because you're arming them with the right data to be able to see it.
That's exactly the vision of it and how we're doing it. And we're finding it's really productive, not just on the servicing, but on the sales side. It's just getting smarter and pay attention to the metrics, that seem to move the needle. And I think the future, where it goes, I'm interested in, is how can we actually serve up opportunities to advisors from within their own practice? I mean, that's where, in some way we're all becoming kind of platform companies and data businesses. And so the more we can understand our own data and create opportunities for advisors from within their practice that maybe they didn't see, then we're maximizing the opportunities.
Savant is currently setting up their own data warehouse. They are hopeful that bringing disparate systems together for analysis will provide rich insights. One thing they are already noticing is how a particular organic growth channel is changing. Here's Brent.
So we're still early innings, but we're seeing a real acceleration on digital lead sourcing. And this was a heavy lift, because we've always been aggressive on marketing. We've always spent more on marketing. Historically, it had been more traditional marketing, doing seminars, doing newspaper ads, doing mailers. At the end of the day, that's not where the puck is going. The puck is increasingly going towards digital. People people with tens and $20 million are doing Google searches to pick their advisor nowadays. It's who would have thought, right? But so that's the reality. So part of the reason we hired McKinsey was to help us think through that. We knew that we had to completely pivot our strategy, instead of, just trying stuff and, shooting up in the air and hoping ducks fall. This is more, rifle shot, right? And it's expensive, we're spending now, almost $10 million a year on this. It's a risk. And, we started out less than that, but it was sort of, test, learn, optimize, because it takes a lot of you know, experimenting to figure out what works. And so it's taken about 2 years, but we dramatically ramped up our spend. We've had to reorganize our advisor comp system to support this. The traditional sales approach doesn't work for digital. The traditional, like if I just take all these digital leads that come out of doing 100 webinars a year and give them to that, gray-haired 50-year-old advisor who's going to do it the way they always do them, it's like you might as well throw seeds on a parking lot, right? It's not
Right.
right, because it's speed to, lead to speed or speed to lead, right? It's these, unlike a referral that comes in, that you can close in 30 days, and it's going off of your personal brand. A digital lead is cold or that's lukewarm, and you have to have a whole internal sales process there. So we built an entire internal, team to develop and warm up these, and we've been building out a business development team that can close these things much more quickly. So it's we've had to really transform the business model to be able to be effective at these. But we're now seeing, this year it's really picking up steam. Last quarter was our biggest quarter in the history of the firm. We can point most of this to the digital investments we've made, internal, development team that we've had to install, to support and make this effective.
What Brent is saying here very much aligns with our experience at FICOM. We conducted consumer research to explore how consumers are choosing different financial advisors. In an industry where organic growth is often built on client referrals, the results were surprising to us. We found that for consumers age 60 and older, a referral is still a requirement for most when choosing a financial advisor. But if you drop that age down from 60 to 44, there is a real need for advisors to have a multi-channel digital strategy to meet the modern consumer where they are today. In our study, only 29% of consumers said they still require a referral to hire a financial advisor. You heard that right, just 29%. For targeting people under the age of 60, a mix of digital marketing tactics are what's driving their decision on hiring an advisor. Here's Rob Morrison with more on Savant's approach to digital discovery.
We're really beginning to get some traction with we have a centralized call team. We call our client discovery team. We put a lot of resource and energy into digital marketing, and that engine is really starting to develop leads and get smarter about curating those leads and then making effective handoffs with advisors. And so, when we go into a new market, we're able to turn on that market in that geography, and we're having, to me, it's a surprising amount of large wins from those efforts. So I would have theorized going into this a few years ago that we'd get smaller on average client, and we're not seeing that. So that's been a really interesting surprise. I guess there's a lot of multimillionaires shopping in their pajamas at night online. So that's, and the momentum on that seems to be picking up because we just keep iterating, right? I mean, we're continuing to learn how do we refine that process. The other thing that we see is that when new teams come in, we had a team from Florida. First time we're in the Florida market that joined at the end of last year, and we've seen our own data that we tend to, roughly double their prior growth rate, and we see that continuing. So, I think there's a few things that work there. They get to take a couple of hats off when they join Savant. So if you were a prior business operator, you were maybe your own bill pay department and HR and compliance and all. And so you get to shed a few of those roles as a business leader, and then you get access to, resources that make you more competitive. And so we just got word, as an example, this team in Florida closed, a couple of really large prospects late last week. And so it's exciting because word travels up the line, and we're excited and feel like we get to win with them when they're closing opportunities. But again, I would say it's a function of them bringing these new tools and capabilities to their existing market. So it's a whole new experience they can deliver. So again, it doesn't look like a new sales process, and it's really not. I mean, we have more services than we did, and I think that's to me, the kernel of this is it was really easy for a long time to hang your shingle out and charge 1% for asset allocation services. And you could I'm stealing this from Michael Kitces, but you could sort of own your zip code, and get all the referrals, and it's a more competitive market now. We have to offer more services and capabilities, and advisors who, I find are good-hearted by nature and want to just help people and bring more value. When they have more to bring and better ways to have the conversation and more value, that they get out there and those conversations are, really productive. We're taking conversations in a new direction. A lot of us have been thinking about how do we, really engage both clients more deeply? How do we talk about the things that they want to talk about? Advisors on average tend to talk about what they want to talk about, which is often investments and Monte Carlo scenarios. Right. And I know as an advisor, if I'm being honest with you, that I'd sit in a meeting with a couple and one of them might be paying attention and the other one can't wait until the meeting's over. And then they don't come back for a year. And so we've been building some tools that are more focused around getting advisors to walk clients through a discovery of their values and a much deeper dive on what their goals are. I'll give you a quick stat on this that I learned in this process. We use Money Guide Pro as one of our financial planning tools. And in the entire Money Guide Pro platform, I was told the average number of goals per household is about 1.5. So, and one is a given, right? I mean, one is financial independence, whatever we want to call that. So when one is given as a profession, at least in one of the biggest planning tools, we managed to uncover half of one additional goal. And the high majority of those are probably college funding, I would guess, for younger families. So we simply don't do a great job. Again, as an industry, I mean, if that's all that articulates what life is for you, that's pretty bleak, right? And so we've developed some tools. We invest in a Australian fintech company called Lumient, which is guiding a values conversation with clients where we're coming out in the area of 10 to 12 goals per conversation. And somebody might listen to this might say, well, okay, what's the big deal, about that? Well, it goes back to engagement. If we have more colorful, richer goals and we can project manage the client to attaining those, we believe, higher engagement is going to lead to more happy, successful clients, which again peels back to, more successful growth rate. And we're seeing, I can't say I have statistical proof yet, but we're seeing the engagement level with this as we piloted it, had to differentiate that, prospects are saying, hey, other firms are not talking to us about this kind of stuff. And this is really interesting to us. And once you get sort of these sacred goals down with people, they really want to then work with you on them going forward. So kind of continuing to try to use innovation to push the envelope of the client experience, and hopefully that's a part of the growth equation.
Before we end our deep dive on Savant, I want to take a closer look at their founder and CEO, Brent Brodeski. As I mentioned at the beginning of the program, being a founder and an entrepreneur is a passion of mine. It is what I study. I read books about successful founders and others written by founders I admire and respect. I seek out learning events and podcasts and regularly meet with a tight-knit group of founders. I've even traveled to an entrepreneurial master's program at MIT. I am making the Growth Leaders of Wealth Management podcast to provide value. I want to be in service of our industry, but I'm also learning so much for myself and my business, and this podcast has truly been a tremendous gift. Brent is an amazing example of a founder and entrepreneur. He has the highest degree of intentionality. He's a builder and an innovator. To me, he seems like an entrepreneurial savant, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have blind spots. Here's Brent.
The nature of blind spots is you're blind to them, right?
You
So
don't
then the
know
question
them,
is how are you going to operationalize processes to uncover them, right? And it's hard and it's, humbling, right? Because this is identifying what you suck at, right? Or, where you think you're good at that maybe others know better. So I have found that leveraging coaches, I've had many coaches over the years. And I've also encouraged our team to do that. So as an example, several of our key team members have engaged a coach to take them through a 360 process where they're talking to all of their direct reports confidentially to say, all right, what is Brent good at? What is he not so good at? What does he not need to stop doing? What does he need to start doing? What is he ignoring that the business really needs him doing, right? What is he doing that other people could do better, right? And then bringing that feedback together and recognizing it's really hard when you get that feedback because sometimes it's like a dagger in the chest, right? But you have to say thanks for the feedback, not debate or argue it, right? Because if you debate and argue it or get defensive, they'll never tell you the truth again. So I think, yes, everybody has blind spots and those blind spots keep evolving. The key is to recognize that and to have a discipline to truly solicit feedback from others, and take that seriously. And you don't always have to agree with 100% of it. But if there's common themes that emerge, it's probably pretty accurate, right? And the good news is you don't have to be perfect. The idea is to just keep evolving. It's just to keep improving. If you just keep getting 1% better, every week, in a year, you're 100% better from a compounding perspective, right? So, yes, there's blind spots, and then you remember we talked about chip the paint versus versus sink the ship. It's also recognizing which risks we're dealing with, right? So there's those things that we can control and there's those things we can't control. But how do we just make sure that we've got construct in place so we don't sink the ship and we rarely name the ship, right? But that we aggressively, take risks, think in sort of a technology uses the term agile, which means you quick make decisions and then you evaluate, you pivot, right? And so that's really what we want to do. We want to make a lot of decisions, take a lot of little risks. And if you do those and you learn from them, and you're humble enough to realize you don't have it all figured out, you can compound the learnings, compound the decisions to create really big outcomes over time. One of the things I've come to learn is we always overestimate what we can accomplish this year, but we way, way underestimate what we can accomplish in 3 or 5 years. So it's really a matter of, yes, continually uncovering the blind spots, making sure we don't name or sink the ship, but aggressively trying things and learning from them, and then, iterating on them and creating a culture where it's safe to provide feedback. It's safe to take risks. It's safe to learn. It's safe to say, I don't have the answer on that. It's safe to be a specialist where you don't have to do it all. You get really smart in a more focused way. And yes, I like to joke and say my job is chief cat herder, right? Because we're all cats. We're all smart, independent, hardworking, people. And so it really comes down to getting those cats all herding in a direction that moves the dial on the business for our clients, for our team, communities, shareholders.
For Keith Taylor and Bill Frayer, it isn't hard to recognize why Brent is a unique leader.
He's all in on Savant. He's never sold a share. He is, I've never seen somebody who's been running a company for 30 odd years as passionate today, maybe more passionate today, frankly, than the first day I met him in terms of the potential. He doesn't slow down in his enthusiasm. And so from that standpoint, just an incredible individual. I think more importantly, maybe from my standpoint are two things. One, he's a constant learner. And so he doesn't pretend, even though he's built a great company, he doesn't pretend that he's got all of the answers. And so he constantly wants to push himself. He wants to associate with other industry leaders. He wants to test what he's doing, what Savant's doing. He constantly wants to improve. And then the second thing I'd say, which is related, is that he is a good listener. Not all leaders are good listeners. And so when we have a board meeting or we have a call, he's not solicitous of Bill's opinion or my opinion or any of the other great board members we have. He's not solicitous of their opinion just because he feels like he's supposed to do it and then files it away, never to be thought about. He really listens and internalizes. You can see from board to board the improvements that he's making, having listened. That's a really impactful leader. And then the final thing I'll say is that he is capable of being decisive. And so one of the things that we see in a lot of leaders, particularly ones that have grown good companies up to a good level, is they get comfortable in that they're not willing to take decisive actions that are risks in order to grow even further. He is very good at assimilating information, again, learning, listening, and then he builds consensus. He is the one that makes the decision, and he leaves rooms with really great alignment from either his team, from the board, from investors. And I think that's really powerful. So
yeah, I mean, I echo all that. I mean, there's so many obvious points you can raise around his intelligence. He's thoughtful. He's got just tremendous judgment. He attracts people. I mean, the talent side of this business is critical, and his ability to interact with the rest of his management team, the advisors. He's built a really differentiated culture at the firm, and is it's just not deviated from that at all. Probably one of my favorite things about Brent is he has this phrase where he talks about firing and rehiring himself every 5 to 10 years. I think recently it's been, I need to do that every 2 years, 2 to 3 years. But I mean, just the evolution that even we've seen over the last 3 years since we first started doing diligence on the company. I mean, he is a fantastic listener. He's very thoughtful. He thinks about the business all the time, literally all the time. And, he's constantly thinking about, how do I execute today to get great results? But how do I ultimately evolve so 3 to 5 years from now, I'm a very different CEO? And that's just so scalable. Like, as we've grown this business from 11 billion to 27 billion over the last 2.5 years, and we've got ambitions to go, multiples on that. Like, I just have so much confidence that Brent's going to be able to continue to scale, given all the attributes that Keith mentioned, plus the fact that we've just seen it firsthand. And it's really quite unique.
We've been investors for 8 years. The company's gone from 3 billion in AUM when we made the investment to just under 30 billion today. So it's just had a tremendous amount of growth. Our investors are, they don't ever want to sell something that has the potential to continue to compound. So we're happy holders for the future. In some ways, for us, it's an easier story to hold on to than it was to buy at $3 billion, because we've seen 8 years of the growth trajectory. We've seen Brent evolve, the company evolve to become better leaders, just better, well-rounded companies. And I would just make the obvious point that even at $30 billion, this is a massive, massive industry. $30 billion is nothing in this industry. And so the question is, it's not a question of market sizing. It's a question of, do you have the right leadership and do you have the right value proposition in the company to continue to take share? And I think our conviction around both of those things are higher today, obviously having lived with Brent and the company for 8 years, than in the first moment we made the investment. And so, it's easy for us to continue to get excited about it and want to continue to be Brent and Savant's partner.
Here's Brent to explain what firing himself means to him.
Listen, there's different stages of growth. I was looking back and saying, okay, where did I start? What was my role? and what am I doing now? And what, in between those, what changed? And what I realized is like historically, about every 5 or 6 years, I had to effectively fire myself, rehire myself, because what the business needed was very different today to go to that next level than it had been in the past. This great book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, right? And the gist of it, the title says it all, but it's like what's required to be successful to go from level A to B becomes the ceiling that prevents you from going to C, right? And part of that is the business needs something different. And part of it as the founder, as the entrepreneur, oftentimes there's things that were different. There's nobody on the team that has that, right? And furthermore, there might be really important things that as the founder, it's like nobody else. I'm going to be the one that does that. Well, if I'm going to do that, that means I got to stop doing other things. And they're usually things that I'm good at, that I'm comfortable at, that I've gotten good habits around doing, that I'm efficient at. And really smart people, they fail because they're not risk takers, and they don't recognize that somebody else could do that job, maybe 80% as well, but then over time, just as well, right? So you got to get out of the way and let other people take over a lot of what you're good at to free you up to have the capacity to go out and do what's important next. And so as I look back, this was probably 7 or 8 years ago, I saw this pattern. And now I've kind of embraced it. So instead of it just kind of happening, now you try to get really deliberate, literally, do a time tracking mechanism to look at a pie chart where I spend my time, and say, okay, that's where I've been spending my time. Now, what is less important? What isn't on the pie chart that I need to do next, right? What is on the pie chart that I need to do more of? What is on the pie chart that I need to stop doing and let somebody else do? What should I do less of? Right. And so that now has become a proactive exercise. It's exciting on one hand because I get to keep doing new cool things, and I get to give up stuff that I don't enjoy doing as much. But it's a little scary too, because you're stopping doing things that you're good at, proven at, to do things that you might fail at. Now, so far, I keep evolving. I'm proud of that. It's probably the thing I'm most personally proud of, is the ability to keep evolving. And at some point, maybe I'll keep a principal out. Somebody else will have to take over. But so far, so good.
Savant has a vision to improve 1 million lives and also create 2,500 millionaire employees. They finished 2023 with $165 million in AUM revenue, plus another $15 million in accounting and other revenue, which is a total revenue of $180 million. On their journey to 10x their business, they are on track to grow to $500 million in revenue by 2028. After speaking with founder and CEO of Savant, alongside their minority partners, the head of M&A, and the chief experience officer, here are my top 5 takeaways. 1, you need clear vision to execute at a high level. Savant is incredibly thoughtful, intentional, and strategic about how they achieve their goals and build their business. Documents like their 10 guiding principles and their 11 differentiators spell out what sets them apart and helps the business operate at peak performance. It can be worthwhile and inspiring to write out the strategy and culture of your business. 2, you can buck the norms when it comes to organizational structure. The employees at Savant own 100% of the voting stock and control a supermajority of the board. Private equity investors are minority investors. Having 2, that's really unusual. And to find the right partners, Savant created yet another written guide, their list of 10 non-negotiables, which spelled out exactly what sort of partnerships they wanted. As such, they've been able to find partners that propel their business forward while preserving their culture, values, and timelines. 3, digital marketing can transform your business. Savant is spending $10 million per year on digital marketing, and they were surprised to find that ultra-high net worth investors are actually using search engines to find an advisor. Consumer research done at FICOM underlines this development. In our study, only 29% of consumers said they require a referral to hire a financial advisor. Digital discoverability is absolutely key. 4, be a lifelong learner. CEO Brent Brodeski thinks of it as being willing to fire yourself. What your business needs from you today can be very different from what it needed 5 years ago. Seek out feedback, adjust your behavior, and be willing to give up tasks you're comfortable doing to take on new tasks that will take you to the next level. 5, be intentional. If you're a leader, write out your expectations and business aspirations and share them with your company. Know exactly who your ideal client is, have a really clear client experience, pay attention to the data and what is driving growth. Be a builder and a good listener, and seek out your blind spots. Brent has the highest degree of intentionality. By doing these things and taking calculated risks, Savant has flourished as they pursue their goal of improving 1 million lives. If you were to follow this example, how would it transform your business or even your life? As always, I'd love to hear your key takeaways from today's episode. Find me on LinkedIn and send me a message. As a reminder, my profile is linked in the show notes. And for more valuable growth resources from FICOM, please visit ficompartners.com/insights. Join us for the next episode when we'll be speaking with Allworth, an RIA that was recently named by CityWire as one of America's fastest growing RIAs. Until next time, this is Meg Carpenter, CEO and founder at FICOM, and your host of the Growth Leaders of Wealth Management.